What is your real name?
Malcolm X.
Is that your legal name?
As far as I'm concerned, it's my legal name.
Have you been to court to establish that
I didn't have to go to court to be called Murphy or Jones or Smith.
Would you mind telling me what your father's last name was?
My father didn't know his last name. My father got his last name from his grandfather, and his grandfather got it from his grandfather, who got it from the slave master. The last name of my forefathers was taken from them when they were brought to America and made slaves. And then the name of the slave master was given, which we refuse. We reject that name today.
You mean you won't even tell me what your father's supposed last name was or gifted last name was?
I never acknowledge it whatsoever.
Brother Malcolm's important. When I was in school, I went to all private schools, as my mother and father would have it. And in those schools, I didn't learn anything about Malcolm X. Fortunately for me, I had a father particularly, kind of like you are with her, that taught me knowledge of self and made sure that we read those books together and I knew that knowledge and that history. Today, in many school books, we do see Malcolm, but you'll see a few scant paragraphs about him. He even has a postage stamp now. Harriet Tubman has a postage stamp. Paul Robeson has a postage stamp. W.B. Du Bois has a postage stamp. Martin Luther King, Harriet Tubman, Sojourner Truth. And when they were alive, this country hated them. Tried to destroy all of them. After they died, Americans said, oh, let's give them a postage stamp. Makes it seem like America was down with him. But he had a postage stamp, and we know that the CIA, the FBI, the New York City Police Department, and some of his own people didn't like him, right? So don't be fooled if you see a book, oh, this history book has a little Malcolm X in it. Well, they're going to give you a little something, but they're going to tell you he was an American hero. And he said, I'm not an American, I'm not a flag waver, I'm not a patriot. So when our people die, they recreate and reshape who they were because they know that young people like you are coming up and they want to make sure you get the wrong idea because they don't want you to be like him. But we need you to be like him. Now anyway, let's go over the questions. Everybody has a Malcolm X story. I'll begin. The question is, how and when did you first learn about Malcolm X? For me, it's real simple. My father always told me about Malcolm. I can't remember when, but I know that I did something I shouldn't have done. And I was in 7th grade, and my mother grounded me, which means she said I could not leave my room for the entire weekend unless it was to go to the bathroom or to go eat. And that was like hell for me, not being able to go outside. So I'm trying to figure out something to do to occupy myself. So I'm going through these shelves. My father had to go through the shelves and bored to death. And I find this crinkly, yellow, faded, crackly book. And the name of the book was Malcolm X Speaks. Now, my father had been teaching me about it, but now I'm like, oh, I'm going to read this. And I read that book. That weekend I went through that book. And did you ever see a movie or read a book and you was like, whoa, that speaks to me. I feel that. Did you ever see a movie or read a book and it blew your mind? That's how it was. And right then and there, at 12 years old, I said, I'm going to be like that dude right there. When I speak, I want people to listen. I want to speak intelligently. I want to be well-read. I want to represent black people. I want to bring honor to my family and to their ancestors and help us to be liberated. And it kept me out of gangs. It kept me out of jail. It kept me out of selling drugs. It kept me out of getting a whole bunch of sisters pregnant. It kept me out of a lot of trouble trying to follow that man, because trying to follow that man, and I didn't come close. Trying to follow that man is very difficult. Never late, always on time. If he said it, he did it. Very well read, never thought he knew it all. Always humble enough to listen to another person. Always carried note cards and took notes and asked people in that debate when you talked about Kemet, where'd you get that? Some of us today think we know it all. That brother was international and still humble enough to say, brother, when you said that, where's that source? I want to go read it, and would read it. I heard this from former professors of mine and people that knew Malcolm. They all say that. Now, the question is, how and when did you first hear about Malcolm X? Brother Dayson, sorry to put you on the spot. When how did you first learn about Brother Malcolm X?
It was primarily Public Enemy that I say sparked my interest in Malcolm X. Because they had imagery of the Black Panthers, of Malcolm, and also Farrakhan. So I say the Public Enemy was probably the genesis of my awakening and being knowledgeable about Malcolm X.
Would he have heard about Malcolm X in hip hop today?
No.
What does that tell you about the difference between the hip hop he was listening to maybe in the 90s and most of the hip hop today?
There's a deficit.
Yeah, it was a different theme. That's another Harlem Liberation School meeting. Absolutely. The brother heard it through hip hop, through music. There's a million ways you can get to the destination.
Ultimately, it was through our discussions and reading the autobiography, and then watching the film and reading more and watching.
What film?
The Malcolm X.
Who did that?
By Spike Lee.
Okay, that's important information.
And then it was also watching the YouTube clips, just reading as much as I can and listening to his speeches. And the more I listen and the more I read, the more powerful his words are and more relevant they are today.
Book, hip hop music, book, and movie. So now we get into why it's important for us to write books. Why it's important for us to do movies. That's a way of sharing a story and a message on a big level. Not you talking to your homie around the way, on the block, but getting it out so everybody can hear it, right? If he hadn't done that autobiography, many of us may not have known about him at the time we knew about him, we learned about him. Brother Spike Lee did that movie starring Denzel Washington. Some people felt there was a lot of inaccuracies, they were picking it apart. But at the end of the day, some people learned about Malcolm through that movie. Right? They learned about it through the movie. And then they went and what? Like she said, I went and then I looked on YouTube. So again, the path, it doesn't matter the path, it's the destination. I got the book and Daddy got the book, hip hop music, book, YouTube, movie. Brother Warren, how did you first learn about Malcolm?
Well, in the 80s, I visited the Nation of Islam, Mosque number 7, and that's when I got involved with the Malcolm experience. And then from there, like you said, he's a hard man to follow, not drinking, not drugging, a man who was out to liberate black people, and that's the path I stayed on.
But you learned about him through going to an organizational meeting, the Nation of Islam. All right? Again, different paths, same destination. Don't get caught up in the past. Very good. My sister.
Basically, I learned by like speeches, watching his speeches on television, and the movie is another way that I learned about it, and the books.
Absolutely. Now you mentioned television. So that Gil Noble show, those TV shows were very powerful. I think he probably did some of the greatest work exposing people to Brother Malcolm and that primary research. Thank you for that. My brother, how did you first learn about
When I was younger, when Malcolm got assassinated, and at that time, in '66, we were very young because after that, just understanding a lot of things. When we went to school, we went to class right after Martin Luther King was killed. And then all these things started to accumulate by them being published on various different magazines, through the Jet, through Ebony, and all those times. And then, like early, when I used to watch Like It Is, all the time, when you said it, I couldn't believe it. And the sad part about it was that, people at that time, a lot of black people, as far as I'm concerned, were in church. At that time, it wasn't as fast the way time is now. And I always thought that show should have always been on like at 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock. But there were just many key things. What you really kind of basically hit it on the head was about Like It Is.
We got books, music, movies, parents, organizational meetings, television shows. Brother brought up another medium, radio. And that radio was black-owned radio, right? I think, LIBBAI, right?
Yeah, that's enough.
So these are people that are able to get out information that you may not get any other place. So if your mom and dad didn't know about Malcolm, maybe didn't even like Malcolm, because all black people didn't like Malcolm X, right? Let's be honest. So you may have heard about it on BAI though. Or maybe you heard about it when Public Enemy said, every brother ain't a brother because a black hand squeezed on Malcolm X today. The shooting of Huey Newton, right? News, right? Or you can hear it, you can see it through Spike Lee's product. None of these things are perfect, but when they all come together, the brother said they all come together, you get a good, the autobiography, which is tainted, because we know book chapters are missing, and we know Alex Haley didn't make that decision.
Right.
The publisher made that decision, right? There's a book out now called The Diary of Malcolm X, Brother Herb Boyd, longtime Harlemite and activist and writer. He put it out. He tells us that it's on what is it called? Limited. It's a limited edition because some of the family feels like, well, that's personal, it's private, shit be out there. So that book won't be out forever. If you don't get that book soon, whoop, it's gone. His diary. All of these things add up. Any of our children, our young ones, the future. How did you first hear about Malcolm X?
Well, I actually watched one of his movies last year. Why, I even got a book not too long ago.
Okay, you remember the name of it, the book?
Malcolm X and His Times.
In his time, very good. So you were introduced to Malcolm through a movie and books. The importance of movies, books, radio broadcasters, parents, organizations, musicians. All of those people now, see, this tells you black solidarity. All of those people are important. Anyway, my sister, did you see any pictures of Malcolm X? Did you show any pictures or anything like that? Remember? Maybe some things on TV or YouTube, books?
She also showed me in many ways.
This sister gets homeschooled by mom, right? Now it's the ideal way. It's not an option for everybody. Some people may have to go to work, but if you can do that, that is the ideal, right? That's the ideal. No foreign influences, no crazy stuff on TV, radio, kids fighting, bullying. All that is pushed to the curb when you're there with mom. You know mom is not going to steer you wrong.
I have always celebrated his born day by keeping my babies out of school when they were going to school. That has always been something that I feel that we don't honor our ancestors. So I took it upon myself to do that. And we have our own, actually we don't even celebrate, we have our own holy days in our house.
Inspirational also.
I don't know if y'all want to do it, because born days is 3 days, holy days, so we get to do whatever they want to do. They kind of got over with that one.
Okay.
But it's just that I think we kind of want something within ourselves. And for me, I first learned about Malcolm growing up. I grew up in a small town in Jersey, and the 5% in Jersey, and the 5% Nation was really big down there. And Clarence was the father of the 5% Nation, and because he came from the mosque, all that history of the mosque was taught to us down there. So that is where I first heard about him. Then I started doing my own research within everything, and the movies and the shirts by any means necessary, and the thinking shirt when I was growing up, that was huge. And I'm so happy to see them coming back. And it was around the time when Queen Necessary was big and proud. So to see them coming back, I was just on LinkedIn 2 weeks ago, and I seen his shirt and her shirt, and I'm like, I feel like I'm young again. Our babies need to know this. We need to know this history because.
Okay, thank you, my sister. Thank you. So we're hearing all types of ways, right, that people learn about Malcolm. Brother McPhee.
Well, one of the ways that I heard about Brother Minister Malcolm, one was with my father. My father was like your father. You know, we had these black calendars, and each month there was someone in black history that we had to know about. Also, firsthand through family members. I had family members that were part of the Nation of Islam. Now, that was a problem because there were people within the Nation of Islam that followed the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. However, there were people that were personally recruited by Malcolm that were members of the family. And so when Malcolm died, they saw Malcolm as a son of Harlem. And so therefore, there were members who left the Nation of Islam to follow the Organization of Afro-American Unity. And so I began as a young age, started getting that knowledge of Malcolm from family members, and then later on from people like Brother James Smalls and also from Dr. Jeffries. And they taught a course at City College, The Life and Times of Malcolm X. And then, as we talk about this pilgrimage, every year I attend that pilgrimage. And there was a program that was held at the Schomburg Center, The Last Living Links to Malcolm. And so therefore there were people that was bodyguards. There was Malcolm's nephew who spoke about Malcolm. So these were the last living links. And so a lot of the personal information I began to learn. But the person that I learned about Malcolm the most was none other than his wife, Sister Betty Shabazz.
Wow.
And there's books like this that came out later on, the Malcolm X by Any Means Necessary by Walter Dean Myers. It may not be as great as the book as Alex Haley, but for some of those on the junior high school level and high school level, this is a book to start with. It's a starter book. So this is one of the ways that I learned about Brother Minister. Thank you.
Family. Okay. My sister. Sister, how did you first learn about Brother Malcolm?
I lived in England, so you don't hear nothing about.
In England?
Yes, I lived in London for a while. I went there as a child, so I didn't hear nothing about Malcolm X until I came to this country. And the first time I heard was watching the movie on television. And I saw him in that movie, and I was like, wow. Never heard of it until I saw the movie on television.
And sister, by the way, told me she's related to Brother Marcus Garvey.
Oh, she's
right?
from Jamaica.
Yes, my children's grandmother is his first cousin.
Marcus Garvey starts an organization, University Negro Improvement Association, right over here, 138, 135th, right? He inspires these two people. And they love him so much that they go from city to city, building chapters of this organization for Garvey. Earl and Louise Little, right? They have a family, a big family. And all of that family winds up joining the Nation of Islam. One of those sons is Malcolm X. So if you think about it, he kind of continues what Brother Garvey put here. That's why I said, never think it's about you. You are simply continuing a long tradition. Right? That's it. A long tradition. If there was no Garvey, where's Malcolm fit into that? So when he hears about the Nation of Islam, it's not like all of a sudden he was just doing wrong and he sees this just like, bang, oh, we got to save black people. He's been taught that since he was a boy, just like you and you. By mother and father. Mom wrote for the Negro World newspaper for Garvey. The father was a Garveyite preacher, so they're hearing this as children. Right? Now he strayed away, got into crime, we know. But when he hears this knowledge, it's like your parent taught you something, you strayed away, and then you hear an older brother or sister say, straighten your tie, pull your pants up. And when you hear that, you hear grandma used to always say that. So it reconnects. That's what happened with Brother Malcolm, right? Okay. Brother Dave.
I mean, first image I've seen of Malcolm was in a music video. I know the brother said Public Enemy, but I think even before that, you had a music video, KRS-One, My Philosophy, where he's sitting on the stage and there's images in the background, and one of those images is Malcolm holding the gun on by the window. That was the first time I ever seen an image of Malcolm. And from there, I kind of wanted to know more. Public Enemy showed more images. I seen the movie. I remember when the movie first dropped, I was in high school. I went to Julie Richmond. That was a big event when that movie dropped. So much so that brothers started getting into Islam in high school off the strength of that movie. You know what I'm saying? They started changing their names. So the movie itself had a big impact. And then later on, I read the book. That was one of the first books I read from cover to cover. I mean, no other book I can say I did that. I read books and I'll skim through. That's like the only book I read from the cover, the front cover to the back cover. And after that, I wanted to know more. I wanted to see more. I wanted to see more documentaries. And then a few years ago, I actually put together a short film called Leader, which is dealing with the legacy of Malcolm X and Martin Luther King, and how their words still ring true to this day in terms of dealing with injustice, economics, things of that nature. But that's it. I think everybody covered in terms of how they viewed it. But my first image was in that KRS-One video, My Philosophy. First time I ever seen Malcolm, and from there, it took me on a path where I'm here today.
He also heard through some hip hop too.
That's right.
Right, KRS-One. Okay. All right. Now we started late because we had a light crowd. Oh, Brother Eddie. I'm sorry, you cannot leave a family member out. Brother Eddie, how did you first learn about Brother Malcolm?
He's the historian in our family, after my grandmother. He's the historian in our family. And he would talk about, I think, everyone, but he was particularly fond of talking about Malcolm X because I grew up in a very religious household, a conservative Christian religion, but something about Malcolm X's defiance spoke to him and my Aunt Joyce, and so he would talk about him a lot when I was little, so I was aware of who Malcolm X was, and oddly enough, my family moved us out of Harlem when I started, elementary school, to a very, very white neighborhood, a very, very white school district. And I don't know what it was, but we did have an unusually high number of black teachers for such a white school district. And my third grade math teacher, of all people, told us about things like Malcolm X and what the civil rights movement was.
Black person.
She was black. This is Bella. She was black.
That's her boy.
Yep. She believed in spanking if you didn't get the timetable done right, but she always reserved about 5 or 10 minutes at the end of class to talk about black leaders. To literally all white class except for me and one other black girl. So, and all through my education, I have to say, it was very atypical because at each stage I had a teacher who talked about those things. So that when I got to the stage where the Malcolm X movie came out, I remember that was a huge event to go to the movie theater and see that movie. And our school, we got extra credit for anyone that wrote a paper, it was a midterm paper, I believe, on that movie with additional history. So it's been a part of my growing up and coming up. And, X-Pan was one of my favorite groups, as a kid. So just the X just spoke to me, and all of those sorts of things, even though I didn't connect to it religiously or spiritually, I definitely connected to how much, Professor X emulated the way, the passion, and the defiance that Malcolm X spoke with. I think Denzel did a good job capturing, but not a great job capturing, just that ultimate defiance, and I felt like X-Pan, just for me personally, did that, and it just made everything come full circle.
Thank you for that, Brother Eddie. I want to just a quick point he made that no one else said that's important. But remember this, there's millions of black school-age kids, and everyone's not going to take their kid out tomorrow and put them in African school. And if they did, there wouldn't be enough Africans in the schools to accommodate them. Not enough people could stay home and not work. So what this implies is that all of them are important. As we transition out of our kids being in their school system, which is going to take a minute, right? Build those African-centered schools, teach our people how to homeschool. And guess what? Since most of our kids are in those public schools right now, have black teachers in the public schools that teach the truth. I started a school, middle school, was a regular public school 16 years ago. They did things we didn't all agree with. I ultimately left it. But while we were there were black teachers in that school, just like you said, that were teaching that information, that if we weren't there, those kids wouldn't be getting information. So this is what I mean by we gotta be very complicated. This is not easy. Oh, the answer is we just do homeschools. Everybody can't do that. That's right. Everybody is not going to do that. Let's see, African Center Schools, that's going to take you a good 10 to 15 years. So what happens in the meantime, right? So it's a complex thing. We need all of these parts working together. And then one day we can make that exodus like Moses and bounce and have our own thing set up. But you still need teachers in those schools. In those public schools that we talk about, we don't like them. And we still got black teachers that know what time it is. And the reason I was a teacher was to make sure that our people knew what time it is. So don't sleep, just because it's a public school, it's the white man's school. Don't sleep. There's people that's in them schools that are dedicated to teaching our kids.